is the Business of Reselling podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Oman. Hey, everyone, and welcome to episode 58 of the Business of Reselling podcast. Thank you again for listening. Today, I'm going to start breaking down some numbers. It's a bit of a longer follow-on from a short video I did last week, which you should definitely check out on the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Storagewarrior.podcast. I did a quick video noticing a really rapid shift in the amount of traffic impressions and listing views I had been getting on eBay.com compared to eBay.ca. Now, I've long maintained that eBay.com is where you will get the most visibility for your items, even as a Canadian seller. But that now I'm starting to pick up some data and some information that kind of goes against what I've said for a really long time. I mean, for over a decade, I've been like, .com is the place to be. I still think .com is the place to be totally honest. But I want to talk to you about what's going on with our .com versus .ca store. Just some interesting data, some numbers, a bit of information. I don't know how much it's going to help you, but maybe you can run the same comparisons on your stores, and we can kind of see if the trends are the same. Anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. I do wanna say, yeah, definitely check out that first video I did on the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@StorageWarrior podcast. I have decided, like, really, for real, I'm gonna try and grow the YouTube channel, so please head over there and like and subscribe. I also did a quick video just asking for some feedback on how I could grow the viewer base on that YouTube channel, so if you have a comment for me, I would love to read it. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get, a few hundred subscribers more by the end of the year. I think that would be really cool. It's a goal I set for myself in January and didn't really follow up on it. You can help me get there. So, like, let's try. Let's try to do it. Funny thing though, I have done more videos than usual lately, and I did lose a subscriber, and that just made me laugh. Anyway, they probably weren't interested in the content anyway, so it's all good. So I'm trying to grow that channel. Please head over there. So I'll get to this data in just a second. I do want to start by answering a listener question. So every once in a while, it's usually on Instagram, someone will send me a message with a question about reselling, and I definitely encourage you to do that, and I'm happy to answer them on the pod. So this question is from David, and it's one that you hear from time to time, but I don't think I've ever answered it myself. And that is, if there was anything you would have done differently starting off in reselling, what would it be? And I would say if I would have done anything differently at the beginning, it would have been to take slightly bigger risks. Now, I'm not saying like quit my job, put my back up against the wall, and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars from the start. But I do think like we could have thrown a little bit more money at things at the beginning that would have paid off, and then even if they hadn't, wouldn't have affected us financially in a negative way at all, and would have probably um, quicken the pace of our learning as resellers. So, reselling is great because it's such a low risk way to try and make money. Anytime, Gary Vee talks about like, hey, you need extra money, sell stuff on eBay, like go to garage sales and flip things. It's like, it's still the basis of the advice that he gives to young entrepreneurs. It is an extremely low risk thing to do. And I'm not particularly risk tolerant. So it was an easy step to get into this type of business for me. Um, and I would say my tolerance to making investments in products for resale is a lot higher now than it used to be. Also, financially, it's easier. But I kind of laugh when I see people at yard sales that I've known for 10 or 15 years now, because it's kind of the same community of people who go to estate sales and stuff. You see them a lot. People at yard sales who won't like take the risk to buy something at a yard sale for $10 that they might be able to flip for 50 or 100 or maybe even more. I can't even comprehend that that level of risk aversion. Like, I think I was probably close to that at the beginning. I grew up, pretty poor and with a scarcity mindset around money. I was very, very afraid to take risks, even very, very small ones. But, once you've been in the business for a long time, I can't understand why you wouldn't take slightly bigger risks. I remember, I don't know, it was probably 6 or 7 years ago now, we were at a yard sale and, there was this really neat electric guitar there, and I wasn't familiar with the brand, but it just felt like a really quality instrument, and the seller wanted 35 bucks for it, and we were like, "Oh, that's a pretty good I mean, even if it's not a gr like, even a Fender Squire you can flip for 100 or 150, and nobody at this yard sale, they were $35, that's way too much." I heard somebody say, "Oh, I would never pay $35 for that guitar." And we were like, yeah, we'll pay $35 for the guitar. How can you lose?" Anyway, did some research on it and found out that it was actually a unique piece. One of the only guitars where the neck and the body were made out of the same piece of wood, so they weren't 2 pieces joined together, it was like 1 piece. So this is unusual, and I still can't remember the brand right now, but anyway, we ended up getting a $1,000 US for it, I think, which was an insane flip. And no one else at that sale was willing to take the risk, and I've got my fingers in quotations right now, on that $35 guitar. So, I do understand it was hard for me to break out of that when we first got into reselling. I still sometimes catch myself trying to look up comps on something for 5 bucks, and it's like, just stop and buy the thing. It's $5. You'll be fine. One less coffee, do it. So that's my advice for you, David. So, uh let me talk some numbers, and I know this is audio only, so I'm gonna try and kind of break this down in a simple way verbally. I But anyway, go back and look at the video on YouTube as well to kind of get the context for when this change started. I'm going to talk for a minute about 30-day traffic impressions on eBay.com versus .ca, and then the same thing for 90-day impressions. These two time periods are relevant because it was the end of August that the de minimis exemption was removed. And we have almost 3 months of data now since that happened to look at, where is the store at, and, are we succeeding on moving to .ca. So, all right. So .com, 30 days. So we're looking at around third week of October to third week of November. Impressions, 926,000. Um, I will note that this is down from several million per month that we used to get on .com when all our listings were there. But the daily traffic has been relatively steady on .com, despite the fact that I haven't been listing a lot of new items there. So that's interesting. And almost all of the items I have on .com are comic books, and almost all of them are promoted. So we have pretty steady traffic day to day, but those impressions down a lot. I mean, quite an incomprehensible amount from when all of our listings were on .com. But of course, it makes sense because it's like a quarter of the listings that used to be there. But it's like an eighth of the traffic. So there's .com. So just shy of 1 million impressions. So .ca, which has 2.5 times as many listings in our store that .com has. Those impressions for the past 30 days are almost 2 million, 1.984 million, with over 12,000 listing views. And that traffic over the past 30 days has been steadily increasing and is still increasing on average every single day. So I'll note a couple of things about this. For one, I've spent the last 2.5 months charging ahead, putting a ton of effort into moving our listings to .ca, which I don't want to say I have regrets about it now. It's just what I did. It's what I chose to do. But we're going to start shifting back to .com, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But anyway, I've been working really hard on bringing the amount of listings up. So the sheer number of listings should increase the traffic, and I believe that it has. Looks like it has. But especially over that last 30 days, I've noticed a significant increase in traffic. This could be due to just the Q4 boost that we tend to get around this time of year when people start to spend a lot of more money online. I also added promoted listings for clothing, hats, and shoes right around November 10th. And after that, promoted listings traffic increased quite a lot, like triple or more. However, Only 2 sales came from that promotion. I also have it on all my diecast cars, but only 8 sales have come from that promotion, out of 113. So promoted listings boosting the views a bit, not really resulting in significant sales. Um, so, but the organic traffic has stayed steady or is increasing. So, how much is promoted listings helping me? Probably not a whole lot is, I guess, the conclusion to draw there. But it is one reason why overall traffic is probably increasing. So that's 30 days. And I like the 30 days right now because it was about mid-October that I felt like I was almost done moving everything over to .ca. So that 30 days kind of encapsulates how I feel like my store is functioning now. And then it gives me a baseline to compare to going forward. So that's 30 days. Now I'm going to go back 90 days. So 90 days is right at the end of August there when the de minimis came down or went away. So on .com, over the past 90 days, I've had 3.9 million impressions. That was down at 82% from from the 90 days prior. But that's the reality of it. So of course there was a dramatic drop in impressions and listing views at the end of August, and it never recovered. I think that's just due to having fewer listings. We went from 4,500 listings on .com to around 1,300, mostly comic books. That traffic continued to decline right up until the middle of October and then boosted up just a little tiny bit. Again, that's probably just the normal fourth quarter bump, so I'm expecting it'll likely decline again. Now, if we talk .ca for 90 days, we're looking at 2.674 million. So compared to 3.9 million, this isn't bad. It's still less traffic overall because I have way more listings on .ca and I'm still getting fewer impressions. But, over that 90-day period, a lot was happening in the store. Like I said, I was adding lots of listings. I was moving things around. And so it's really not that surprising. Um, However, we do see a huge uptick starting right around October 19th, like the middle of October is when that huge boost in impressions starts to happen. And I'm going from 100,000 views around October 12th, less than 120,000 views around October 12th to by November 16th, you're looking at 600,000 views for that week. So that's a 6x increase. And I did just talk about the 30-day traffic on .ca increasing a lot. So that's pretty interesting to see. Conversion rate is about the same on both sites. The quantity sold, I think, proportionally is about the same on both sites. So this is really interesting. The traffic is increasing dramatically on .ca in late October. That's just before I added promoted listings for my clothing categories. So I felt like I had reached by that point like some kind of critical mass number of listings, like where your store starts to gain momentum and people shop there and stick around and browse. So by that point I was well over 3,000 listings again, with about half of those being on .ca. Um, Adding promoted listings, as I said, it seems to have helped with traffic overall, but not really sales. There's not enough longevity of data to really assess this. So I think after Christmas, the first couple of months of next year will probably give me a better idea of how well that's working. So the main factor in this dramatic increase in traffic, I really must be due to promoted listings, or sorry, due to more listings, not promoted listings. Now the quantity sold, so this is what's kind of interesting. The quantity sold doesn't follow the same pattern. So we see the increase in traffic on .ca, but we don't see the same big increase in quantity sold. It's up a little bit, but not as dramatically as the traffic. And that same pattern goes for .com. So I'm sort of attributing that to just the fact that I had several markdown sales on both sites on and off over the last few months just to try and get some sales somewhere and sort of and keep our revenue going. So that probably has an impact on overall quantity sold because there's a lot more volatility in that than there is in the overall listing traffic. But the combination of increased traffic and markdown seems to be leading to higher sales overall. Again, that's probably a fourth quarter thing. People are getting into holiday mode, and Black Friday is coming next week. So we'll see if that continues into next year. A couple things to note about this. I'm not listing much on .com anymore. Haven't done comics much in a while. I'm only adding other items here and there. That is going to change, but I'm going to save that for another podcast and talk about that more in the future. Other thing to note is I was added to eBay Canada's eBay International Shipping Program right around November 10th. But organic traffic is pretty steady overall since then. So I think it's mostly promoted listings that increase the total traffic over the last 9 days. We'll see if as time passes, if it looks like EIS is helping. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about EIS in a minute because I'm not impressed so far. So anyway, in the past 30 days, traffic on .ca is double what is happening on .com, and the number of listings is also around 2.5x. So the correlation kind of matches. However, if it turns out that traffic and listing totals are correlated, like I suspect they are, I'm still going to be listing more items on .com for visibility and adding shipping policies that cover tariffs for American buyers. I will probably try to keep those .com listings mostly to limited categories like comic books and media because those are going to be tariff-free, as well as any items that are made in the U.S. The rest I'll decide on an ad hoc basis. And so I'll talk about that more in a future episode. But one other thing I want to mention is that another incentive that you might have to revitalize your ebay.com is if you get paid in US dollars, like I do with eBay managed payments. Remember, you can never change that, right? So if you chose US dollars when you signed up for managed payments a few years ago, you can never change that to Canadian ever. So the exchange rate eBay's using, it's like if you're making sales on .ca, they're converting that to US dollars and then depositing that into your account. And their exchange rate is not very favorable. And then, of course, you have to pay more fees again to exchange it back into Canadian dollars. So you're doing that FX twice. So the more you sell on .ca, the harder you're getting hit with that. So it's just something to keep in mind with pricing. And it is really like that's a big reason for me that I want to grow the store on .com again. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of minutes and talk about eBay International Shipping. I'm not impressed with this so far. I really hope that somebody from eBay.Canada listens to this podcast. I doubt they do, but I really, really hope they do. Guys, this feedback, it it matters. This program does not seem ready to roll out. I was at the webinar that they did a few days ago on November 18th. It it explained some things in the program. It was helpful. I understood more details about how the program works. I really like the seller protection that is incorporated into it. I can see the advantages of it, but it is not showing up correctly on listings. And this seems to be across the board. Everybody on the groups and the forums seems to be saying the same thing. It shows up on this listing, but not on that one. This one has my shipping policy and EIS. This one only has my shipping policy. This one only has EIS, and we cannot figure out why. So the problem is how it appears or doesn't appear on people's listings. Like, for example, I looked at my CDs. I took 2 CD listings randomly. One was printed in Taiwan, the other one was printed in .com. One of them only shows my shipping policy, and one of them shows my shipping policy and eBay International Shipping as the option, if you're looking at it from a US buyer perspective. I didn't even try looking at it from as if I was in France or something to see what would show up. I'm like, it's crazy. I mean, they suggested in their Ask Me Anything that they put in the eBay community forum the other day, they're like, yeah, if you're confused about why EIS isn't showing up on some listings, send us a link. It's like, well, do you want me to send you 2,000 links to 2,000 items in my store? Because I cannot find a pattern here. Like, I don't get it. So if buyer sees different policies on different listings, it can be confusing if they're considering buying multiple items from your store. Like, how are they going to choose? I think that there's still some delivery hiccups to the hub. I'm not 100% sure. I have shipped about 10 things to the hub. It's only open 8 to 3 on weekdays as far as I know. This is much too limited for some carriers. And of course, the EIS email, they don't respond to inquiries or it takes them weeks to get back. Even though they are inviting people to ask questions, they are not actively answering them. They haven't put their resources towards doing that. And it's just leading to frustration and anger across the board. Um, so like I said on the eBay community forum, like we can't play the game if we don't know the rules. This program has the potential to be really great for sellers, but given the inconsistency of how it's showing up on people's listings, it tells me that they weren't ready to roll it out, or they weren't ready to with the criteria of how things would show up so that sellers could strategize and understand what to do with their businesses on .ca. So that's another incentive to go back to .com and list there. So I remain highly critical of the program, but most of my sales are not through EIS anyway, so I'm going to stay in for now. I tried to opt out, and then they enrolled me anyway, but here I am. I'm going to stay in and see if it improves. So that's all for today. I want to say thanks as well to the listener who suggested on our YouTube channel that I develop more content related to my academic background and connecting business knowledge to reselling. That was something I focused a lot more on at the beginning. I have the education and the background, but I don't really talk about it as much because I feel like maybe I don't know, it's stupid. Maybe it's like a limiting belief for me, but I feel like it's maybe a bit intimidating to be like, oh, I have 3 degrees and I taught university and I did all this stuff, but I guess it lends the credibility that I maybe need to help to grow the podcast. So I've moved away from some of that. And I'm definitely going to work on bringing it back for future episodes. I'm already working on episode 59 that'll have some pretty interesting research incorporated into it. So again, please subscribe to the podcast. You can anywhere you get your podcasts. It's at businessofreselling.com. And please head over to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe there. You'll get more content than this. You'll get the podcast episodes. You'll also get the occasional videos that I do. And don't forget, we are still buying. Hook us up with a great pick in British Columbia, and you will receive a gift. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.